In the late 1800s, the American Midwest was a land of opportunity and danger. As railroads snaked across the landscape, bringing prosperity to some, they also became prime targets for outlaws. No figure loomed larger in the shadow of these iron tracks than Jesse James, a former Confederate guerrilla turned infamous robber. Alongside his brother Frank and a ragtag crew of bandits known as the James Younger Gang, Jesse waged a one-man war against the wealthy and powerful, robbing banks, stagecoaches, and trains with the audacity of a folk hero. But beneath his bold exterior, Jesse was a complex figure, both celebrated and hunted, a man who saw himself as a rebel striking back at a society he felt had wronged him. One of the gang's most legendary heists was the Gad's Hill train robbery, a daring daylight holdup that would cement Jesse's place in outlaw lore. Before we jump into today's story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to support the channel. It helps us bring you more great content. All right, let's dive in. The sun dipped low in the Missouri sky, casting long shadows over the quiet town of Gad's Hill. It was January 31st, 1874, a date that would go down in history as one of the most daring heists ever pulled off by the infamous outlaw Jesse James and his gang. The James Younger Gang, known for their fearless robberies and dramatic escapes, had set their sights on a moving target, a train loaded with cash, gold, and valuables. Riding at his crew's head, Jesse was dressed in a long, dust-coated coat and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his eyes. His brother, Frank James, rode beside him, his face stern and eyes fixed on the tracks ahead. The gang had spent weeks planning this robbery, scouting the area and studying the train schedules. They knew this was no ordinary train. It was the Iron Mountain Railroad, carrying the payroll of a wealthy mining company. Jesse raised his hand, signaling the gang to stop. "This is it, boys," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "We wait for the train to come right to us. No need to chase what's going to come willingly." The gang members nodded in agreement. They had set up an ambush on a remote section of the tracks near Gad's Hill, a perfect spot, surrounded by thick woods, offering plenty of cover. Jesse's plan was simple but bold. Stop the train, take the loot, and vanish into the wilderness before anyone knew what hit them. As the gang waited, the sound of a distant whistle pierced the air. The train was approaching, its powerful engine chugging closer and closer. Jesse's heart pounded with anticipation. He knew this heist would make headlines across the country, solidifying his reputation as the most notorious outlaw in the West. With the train now in sight, Jesse rode out onto the tracks, waving a red flag. The conductor, seeing the warning, pulled the brake lever, bringing the massive locomotive to a grinding halt. Steam hissed from the engine as it stopped right in front of the gang. "Hands up! This is a robbery!" Jesse shouted, his voice echoing through the stillness of the forest. The gang members leaped into action, guns drawn. They swarmed the train, pointing their revolvers at the passengers who looked on in shock and fear. Jesse, ever the showman, strolled confidently toward the train's front car, where the engineer and conductor were frozen in place. "You folks stay calm, and nobody gets hurt," Jesse said, tipping his hat. "We're just here for the money, not your lives." While Jesse and Frank kept the passengers in check, the rest of the gang, including the younger brothers, Cole, Jim, and John, worked quickly to break into the express car. Inside, they found a safe packed with cash and gold bars. But there was a problem. The safe was locked tight. Jesse turned to the express messenger, a young man who was visibly shaking. "Open it up," Jesse ordered, his voice cool as ice. The messenger fumbled with the keys, his hands trembling. The safe clicked open, revealing stacks of money and glittering gold. The gang wasted no time, stuffing the loot into their saddlebags. But Jesse wasn't done yet. He knew the passengers likely had valuables on them too. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jesse announced, stepping into the passenger car, "if you'd be so kind as to hand over your watches, wallets, and anything else of value. We don't want to take more than we need, but every little bit helps." Despite the tension, Jesse's charm and calm demeanor made the passengers comply without much fuss. One man, however, tried to hide his pocket watch, a family heirloom. Jesse noticed and approached him. "Now, sir," Jesse said, smiling slightly, "I understand that watch means a lot to you, but I'd hate to leave anyone feeling slighted. How about this? I'll let you keep the watch, and you let us keep the rest." The man nodded, relieved, and Jesse moved on. He wasn't a monster, at least in his mind. He saw himself as a sort of Robin Hood, taking from the rich and, well, keeping most of it for himself and his gang. With the loot secured and the passengers unharmed, Jesse gave the signal. "Time to go, boys." The gang mounted their horses, saddlebags heavy with their takings. Jesse tipped his hat one last time to the stunned passengers before spurring his horse into a gallop. In a matter of minutes, the gang had vanished into the woods, leaving the train crew and passengers bewildered and speechless. As the gang rode through the dense forest, their spirits were high. They had pulled off one of the most daring train robberies in history without a single shot fired. Jesse, always the leader, looked back at his brother Frank and grinned. "We did it," Frank said, his usually stern face breaking into a rare smile. "That was smoother than I expected." Jesse nodded. "A little too smooth," he replied, his eyes scanning the horizon. He knew better than anyone that success could make a man careless, and carelessness could get you killed. News of the Gad's Hill robbery spread like wildfire. Newspapers across the country reported the story, painting Jesse and his gang as both villains and folk heroes. Some celebrated their audacity, while others condemned their lawlessness. But one thing was certain. The legend of Jesse James had grown even larger. For the next few days, the gang laid low, hiding out in a safe house deep in the Missouri hills. They divided the loot, each man taking his share. Jesse, however, remained restless. The thrill of the robbery was already fading, and he was thinking of the next big score. He knew the law was closing in, but that didn't bother him. The chase was part of the game, and Jesse James loved the game more than the prize. As Jesse sat by the campfire one evening, staring into the flickering flames, he thought about the life he had chosen. He was no hero, but in his heart, he believed he was fighting against a system that had wronged him. The railroads, the banks, the powerful, they were the real thieves, he told himself. He was just leveling the playing field, one robbery at a time. The Gad's Hill train robbery would go down as one of Jesse James's most famous heists, a testament to his daring and his belief that he was untouchable. But Jesse's reign wouldn't last forever. The law was always just a step behind, and betrayal would eventually come from the most unexpected place, his own home. But that's a story for another time. For now, Jesse James was still the king of the outlaws, riding free and living by his own rules. As he watched the flames dance, he couldn't help but smile. In his mind, the world was his for the taking, and he wasn't about to stop anytime soon. And so, the legend of Jesse James rode on, carried by the whisper of the wind and the click-clack of train wheels, echoing across the vast, untamed frontier of the Wild West.